So I have a terrible fear of lightning. At one point in my life, I was unable to hear the sound of thunder without a sense of panic overtaking me. I could not be outside in a lightning storm or even in a car, going so far as to pulling over at a store to hide inside for the duration of the storm. Over the years, I have been able to overcome the most extreme elements of this fear. I can hold a butter knife inside while there is lightning, but the fear is something that is always a part of me. And while I recognize that this fear is irrational, as with so much in the world, it was a rational process that led to this irrational conclusion. You see, I grew up in the high mountains of Colorado, surrounded by scraggly pines and giant boulders. Even at the great heights of 10,000 feet, our house was surrounded by high cliffs and the peak of Mount Evans not far away. It was also built on an iron vein, so every time it would rain, it would lightning, and that lightning had few outlets other than our house or the pines. And it was so frightening because there was nothing that one could really do to protect oneself. One day, with blue skies all above and the rumble of a storm in the distance, from over a cliff wall, out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning rained down, exploding a tree in half. Lightning can be hotter than the surface of the sun, and when that much heat interacts with the water of the sap, the pressure causes fully grown trees to explode. Attracted by the iron in the ground, the lightning would strike our house often, destroying our water heater. Once it even traveled through the house, through our metal desk and into my brother. For weeks following, my brother and I tried to determine if he had been imbued with special superpowers. Could he run faster now? Could he move things with his mind? Could he control the lightning, shooting it from his fingertips like the Emperor in Star Wars? To my young mind, there was no place that one could hide from lightning, nothing that one could do in the face of lightning, and thus there was a comfort in the idea that my brother could control it somehow. And this tendency to tell stories about the earth and the natural world is not unique to children. Telling stories allows us to understand, to know, and thus to feel a sense of control and power over an earth that is so powerful. Ancient myths of gods controlling the thunder and the lightning, Zeus, Thor, Thunderbird, just to name a few, served not only as an explanation of the origin of such events, a sort of pseudoscience, but also as a way to cope with the reality of a world that is so much bigger than us. We still tell ourselves many stories about the natural world because the earth is still bigger than us. It may not be possible for us to engage the natural world without telling these stories. It is just simply too big, too much to know, and we have to live in and with it. And the earth has become less scary in a way. We have built modern conveniences of life so that the rainstorm may not even be noticed, whereas at one time it was the overriding concern for the day. But in some ways, the earth has become enormously more frightening. Like Hades in Louis Gluck's poem, we are in danger of attempting to create our own earth out of love, to steal the stars out of the night sky to populate our streets, to inoculate ourselves from the terror that the earth can be. One story that we tell is that the earth is hostile or at best indifferent to us. And there is a truth to that story. Any of us who have been homeless even for a night know the hostility of the environment. It is this hostility, perhaps even this indifference, that led us to build shelters and use tools so as to be somewhat insulated from these environmental factors. And the buildings of the shelters made the beautiful music that we play and the books that we read possible. But this story also reads the earth as a hostile army that we must conquer, a threatening beast we must break. In this story, the earth is a place from which to extract resources into human benefit. And by the early 1800s in America, we got really good at this conquering. The growth of New York can be attributed to the building of the Erie Canal in the 1800s. It's a 363-mile-long trench that used the water of the Hudson and the Great Lake as a vehicle to further extract and transport the resources of the world. And little care was taken in the building of this dam. 1,000 human lives were lost in the process, and countless animal species died, and generations of animals were affected by disruptions to their traditional migration routes. But these were all seen simply as casualties of a war against the hostile elements and casualties that stood in the way of commerce. Obviously, this view of the earth as hostile resulted in the world we live today, and we all benefit from, however uncomfortable, from this story. The food that we have shipped to our grocery stores relies upon the extraction of fossil fuels from around the globe. The waste systems that we have created are designed to facilitate forgetting, like corpses buried in a mass grave ringing the outskirts of our cities and towns. And the more that we learn about the Anthropocene, the name given to our quote unquote successful conquering of the earth, the more we learn what the consequences are of viewing the earth as a hostile thing to conquer and use. Climate change is real. So powerful has been the story of the hostile earth that it is important to begin every discussion about the earth and our place in its history with these 4 words. It positions us in a new narrative, one that becomes clearer every day as scientists reveal and discover new effects of our activities on this planet. Climate change is real, but that is only the beginning of the story. How we tell the story next may make all the difference. Although it isn't immediately apparent, there can be a comfort in the truth of climate change. We know that humanity has had a devastating impact on the earth, such that the weather patterns have changed and glacial ice caps are melting. And it may sound strange, but not unlike my brother and I attempting to control the lightning with stories of his superpowers, the true story of climate change can offer us a sense of control. It makes the issue of the earth seem almost manageable. We simply must just convince the powers that be to do something different, to change the way we interact with the environment. It makes the frightening changes of the earth into a social problem with a social solution. It makes the enormity of the earth feel like we can vote our way into a better relationship with it, or that we can science our way out of all of these problems. And there is a truth to that. We do need responsible leadership. We do need the tools of science. We do need social change committed to healing our planet so that we can try to mitigate the impact of climate change. But when the story ends there, we are missing something. The earth is not under humanity's dominion. We can affect it and we can know it, but never perfectly and never completely. The earth is not just this simplistic entity any more than humans are simply beings. The metaphor of human doctor, earth patient falls short when we reflect that the earth has millions of species of flora and fauna. It is a complex, interrelated system co-creating the conditions necessary for our lives. The story of Earth patient, human doctor overstates our ability to control the Earth. And while science is truly amazing, it overstates the level of control and knowledge that science has. For the Earth is bigger than our knowing. And the truly terrifying thing about climate change is just how much we cannot know. We cannot know what the future will look like, how the Earth's systems will change, at least not in their entirety. We know that there will be more hurricanes. We know that the age of human-related extinction has begun. We know that some places on this planet will become even more hostile to life, such that even shelter cannot protect us. We also know that we do not know what effect our interventions will have on these trends. We do not know if it is too late, and we do not know what will happen if we try to reverse course. In this way, science is more like an interlocutor with the Earth than it is a knowing subject over inert matter. And in this dialogue, we can begin to feel a lot like Job in front of Job's God. If you remember, Job is the person in the Hebrew scriptures who states his case before God, lamenting the state of his life while standing firm in his righteousness. Whenever I'm called to think about the Earth, my first thought is the lightning of my childhood. The Earth is that which surrounds us and which has no bounds. Much like Job's God, my Earth appears to me in a storm, seemingly indifferent to our suffering and capable of heaping more of that suffering on in an instant. The Earth is terrible. Not in the weakened sense of awful like we might use to describe a poorly cooked meal, but in that robust sense of dread and trembling. The Earth is terrible, and I think of lightning striking a tree through the clear blue sky. But then I also remember the Russian word, which is usually translated as terrible, like in the sobriquet of Ivan IV, which is Ivan the Terrible. Grozny. But Grozny could also be translated as awesome. Again, not in that weakened way that so many of us millennials would describe a piece of pizza, but in the original form of inspiring great reverence and great dread. The Earth is both terrible and awesome. It is Grozny. By telling ourselves the story of an Earth that at once inspires dread and reverence, we may be so moved to sacrifice what is necessary to save ourselves and this planet. On the surface of Jupiter, there is a famous storm, the Great Red Spot, so big that 3 full Earths can fit inside of it. The Great Red Spot is not terrible. It does not inspire dread or reverence because it is over there. It has never been related to us in any meaningful way. The Great Red Spot of Jupiter is getting closer. While we live in a temperate climate that has remained largely untouched by climate change, there are some places on this Earth that are beginning to look like that big red spot, a harbinger of the future where Earth is no longer terrible or awesome. Like Hades' Earth in the Gluck poem, it is a future where the Earth can no longer hurt us because it is dead. One night as a child, I was awakened in the middle of the night to the terrible explosions of thunder announcing the flashes of lightning. I slipped out of bed, trembling, and I met my father in the kitchen. He was ecstatic with reverence. I remember that he picked me up on his shoulders and he took me outside. There in the moist air, in the glow following a late night storm, we watched the lightning in the distance. It was purple and it struck upward toward the heavens. Watching this seemingly impossible occurrence of the lightning shooting from the earth to the heavens seemed like a moment outside of time, like we are still there somehow, watching this phenomenon. Me on my father's shoulders, awestruck and trembling. The lightning, which was so close to me in my fear and my life, was also so beautiful and so unbelievable. By seeing it from afar, watching it strike not me, but the sky, I found the meaning of reverence. Reverence is knowing that something is infinitely more powerful than you, and knowing that it was awesome in that power. In our reading, Basho describes this terribleness in the calm image of a mushroom and a leaf. His poem captures the indeterminacy of being, a mushroom and a leaf coming together for no reason whatsoever. Lightning can strike anyone at any moment, following all of the laws of nature, following all the myths and stories that our collective brilliance can come up with. Sitting with and accepting the indeterminacy of being may be our only escape from the hubris of control. As John Cage's translation sings, "What leaf? What mushroom?" I could equally sing, "What lightning? What house?" Reverence for the earth means being the mushroom with the leaf unknowingly stuck to its back. It means being the children knowingly trembling beneath their covers because they have known the power that the earth holds. And it means knowing that our stories, while soothing, cannot match the power of the earth, which has held us all these many years. As we leave these Zoom rooms today, it is more important than ever that we notice those moments when no story will do, where the earth speaks to us not as something we tell, but as something that speaks to us in a language that we will never fully understand. So as we head out to coffee hour and re-enter the space of our homes and our lives, we let us open ourselves to those moments where we can clearly see the terrible awesomeness of this earth with which we co-create our existence, and where we can recommit ourselves to a life lived in its mystery. Thank you.